Grinders. Welcome to RotoGrinders Today. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderHD, BlenderHD. You're going to follow me on Twitter. And it's Tuesday, April 23rd. We'll be taking a look at the 10-game MLB slate for tonight on DraftKings, as well as talk some props, talk some pick them, talk whatever you want. Hit that thumbs up button. If you're here in the chat, post your comments. Hit the subscribe button. Hit all the things. The notification bell. We got Grinders Live. We got Crunch Time later in the day. So this is kind of a first look. See, we don't got, lineups in and everything. Stuff still moving around. Sim Labs just came up here in the morning. We'll take a look at that as well. Join with me, the professor of game theory, alongside with me, both game theory enthusiasts. It's Alex SONTY. It's baseball season, so you're going to be on the show a lot more. And the slate today is
interesting.
I mean, we at least have some offense on the slate. I wouldn't call it a bad pitching slate, but I also wouldn't call it a great pitching slate. I think we'll see a good amount of ownership in cores, even though it kind of burned people yesterday. What are your first thoughts on just overall on the slate? Either or props and pick them as well. I know you're writing a pick 'em article.
Well, I think first off, I think we should revisit a little bit of the conversation we had on Grinders Live last week about pitching. That there aren't, let's just look at the Hall of Famers who are on the IL right now. We've got Jacob deGrom, maybe not a Hall of Famer, but Hall of Fame talent. Clayton Kershaw, Spencer Strider, Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer. I could keep going on and on. I looked it up yesterday. There's 74 starting pitchers on the IL right now. 74 just on the IL. So we've watered down the pitching so much that I think I've noticed from conversations in Discord, the way chalk is turning out in every lineup, people are looking at these slates and just measuring the pitchers against the other pitchers within and not taking in the entire zeitgeist of the league, which is saying that there is no elite starting pitching right now. There just isn't any elite starting pitching right now. So when we see a guy who is 10K, 9.5K, and they might be the best pitcher on the slate, and they might grade out great in terms of points, maybe 3 points ceiling over the next guy and whatnot, it's not the same. We can't treat that exactly the same as we would when Max Scherzer is 3 points ahead of everyone else on the slate, or when Clayton Kershaw is 3 points ahead of everyone on the slate. So my first thought is not looking at who are the best pitchers on the slate, but I start looking more toward ownership. I'm taking pricing into consideration more than I probably ever have. I've never really taken salary into consideration with MLB DFS, and now in 10 years, I'm finally starting to look at salary a bit more and trying to find cheaper, lesser owned pitchers, and then attacking higher owned SP2s with bats. So my first look at this slate, I'm looking at ownership for the first time right now. I'm sorting by ownership. I'm seeing Kevin Gausman at 30%. We had this last Wednesday, didn't we? Did we have Kevin Gausman on the Grinders Live slate? And he's here at 30%. And the first thing that pops up in my head is, what do I do with the KC bats? Not how do I play Kevin Gausman, or how is Kevin Gausman getting back to being the Kevin Gausman of the last couple of years? We can get in the weeds of, is Kevin Gausman back to being the last 7 years? But my point is, I don't think anyone should be 30% owned in this day and age with all the pitchers we have on the IL. What do you think?
Alex, I think one should be on this slate, and thanks to Andrew
maybe
Martinez.
On this slate.
The thummy thumbs. Hasn't caught a shot in a while, but definitely hit the thummy thumbs. Right? Yeah, you wave your thumbs and help it out. On this slate, I think maybe there should be a 30%, at least a 30% owned pitcher. Pablo Lopez is 9,300. Pablo Lopez I'm not saying this because it's Pablo Lopez. I'm saying this because the White Sox are like bad. I mean, they're bad.
It's rough.
Now, I know that there'll be some regression, right? They can't be this bad for this long.
Mm-hmm.
But And it's not like I'm a big Pablo Lopez person. Even I'm looking at the bat projections here. Typically, the bat tends to be under on Pablo Lopez compared to the rest of the industry. And he's 4 points, almost 4 points median projection higher than any other pitcher on the slate.
Because the median pitcher in MLB is fucking terrible. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. It's terrible.
Yeah, but 22 fantasy point as a median is
It's
an
pretty good.
elite
Actually,
projection.
the bat really likes Pablo Lopez for season long, because even before Spencer Strider got hurt, and I think even before Garrett Cole went down, Lopez was like a top 6 pitcher for the season, according to the bat. One of the few pitchers, maybe 4 or 5 pitchers that were projected to go 180 innings. So the bat does like a guy who can get a high quantity of outs. And Pablo Lopez can get a high quantity of outs on this slate. He is one of the few pitchers that are active right now who can, I hate to say CGSO, but can go 7, 8 innings, and you can kind of trust him in a bad matchup to have a ceiling of 7 or 8 innings. No one has ceilings of 7 or 8 innings right now.
But bark back at your point from before, isn't Gausman the same, similar leash wise, where Gausman could go 7 innings? I think the difference on this slate is that I think the Royals are better than the White Sox. And I also think that Gausman is much more higher variance pitch. I mean, basically, your point, especially from last week, was the better, quote unquote, better pitchers versus the worst pitchers. I think it's better mathematically to say that pitching is going to be higher variance because of the lack of aces. Not that there are better pitchers. The better pitchers aren't better pitchers. It's like on this slate, we have Pablo Lopez, we have Max Fried, we have Logan Webb, we have Gausman, we have Michael King pitching in Colorado, which, I mean, Colorado sucks, but you're trying not to take pitchers in Colorado, but he's only 7K. Your point is that from a variance standpoint, we're used to having expensive pitchers be lower variance than cheaper pitchers. We're used to, you take a shot on some 6K guy and you're like, sometimes he puts up 24. Sometimes he puts up -8. A lot of times he just puts up 7 points, right? And typically when you're taking a 10K level pitcher, 9K, 10K, it's like, well, I could pretty much lock in 10, right? A bad outing, he's probably still getting 10, 12 points. And on a good outing, you get 30. It's like, no, they're not getting pitchers may end up getting -4s also, right? It may be all over the place. His median, the medians for these pitchers may be higher, but the range of outcomes are going to be much, much wider. And that's why, like you said, you're much more willing to take shots on pitchers that are 2K cheaper than others to fit in a more expensive stack, because people the field is gravitating too much relating salary to skill. If a better way of putting it, it's like, oh, I'm going to spend 17K on pitching no matter what on a slate, because that's what I'm used to doing. When a lot of times, even if you look at our sims, a lot of times taking shots on cheaper pitch, like spending 15K on pitching and having Mike Trout in your lineup or Acuna in your lineup actually shows to have a higher expected value on all the slates that don't involve a Cy Young Award winning level Hall of Fame level pitcher, which, to be honest, I'm not sure there are any that are healthy anymore.
Yeah. Well, when I first took a look, I wasn't looking at your screen. I was looking at mine, and I was looking at my spreadsheet where Pablo Lopez is 10-2 on FanDuel. I didn't see that he was 9,300 on DraftKings, so he's definitely in consideration with tonight. But back to Gausman, you talked about he has a long leash. Look, your leash is only as good as the walks you give up. Because if you're driving up your pitch count, if you're throwing 25 pitches an inning, you're not going to last 5-6 innings. They're not just going to put you out there for innings. You got to throw strikes. And he's walking people at the highest rate of his career. We used to have a short memory here. We care about today and today only. But we used to have a nickname for Kevin Gausman in DFS 5 years ago. Kevin Gascan, because he was terrible. He couldn't throw strikes. He gave up. He wouldn't give up a ton of walks, but he would get behind in every count. Then he would force a strike down the middle, and guys would clobber him. And I don't know if he's not doing. I don't know if he's doing that again, but his walks are up. And when I see a guy's walks are up, it's early in the season, and it just doesn't look good. And I think Kansas City is pesky enough to knock it around this big ballpark. They have enough power to knock it out of this ballpark. They're showing that the ballpark doesn't matter for them.
Then why don't we just take the safest options, which are Fried and Webb? Right? We take Webb against the Mets, Webb against the Mets,
bag it.
Fried against the Marlins, and then you go, well, I'm not sure if I'm ever going to get 30 points out of either pitcher, but they probably pitch 6 innings and probably don't kill me.
No. And the Marlins are awful against lefties. Without Jake Berger, they've got nothing to throw against a lefty. And Max Fried is a weird guy. It's kind of like young Zach Wheeler. Dustin May was one of these guys until he got hurt. But Max Fried actually, if you watch Max Fried, if you don't look at the numbers, you don't know anything. You just know like baseball as a scout, and you watch Max Fried, you would think he's a high strikeout pitcher because he has some velocity. He's got some good movement. He gets good ground balls. He tends to stifle people, but he's not a high strikeout pitcher. Which is he's just one of those guys that's kind of baffling to me. It's, I want him to have so many more strikeouts than he has, but he doesn't. Which is what puts him in the Logan Webb category of a guy who can get you some innings. He won't get you 7 strikeouts in 5 innings, but he could feasibly get you 7 innings and 5 strikeouts, which for our purposes, we'll take it. That's kind of the same thing.
How about Michael King in Colorado? Because obviously we could get strikeouts from Michael King against the Rockies.
I'm very intrigued by Michael King. I am not intrigued by double-digit ownership in Colorado. In Colorado, I want 4%, right? We want the Herman Marquez 3.5% special.
I'm not sure if it'll be that high. I'm not sure unless people go with recency bias. I mean, I played King in my lineup last week when he threw like 7 million strikeouts at like single-digit ownership. Yeah, I'd be with you. I wouldn't be a big fan. I mean, obviously on DraftKings, you have to play 2 pitchers. I'm not sure if you need to play Michael King on FanDuel, but for 7K, I mean, I feel much more comfortable attacking the Rockies lineup than I do feel comfortable playing if I'm not playing Michael King, like if you're playing a cheap pitcher, 7K or under, do you take a shot at King against the Rockies or Canning against the Orioles, Dunning against the Mariners? I mean, Fetty's 7,500, so there's a little past it. I mean, JP France against the Cubs. I mean, I don't want to do that.
Wind's going to blow out today, too. But back to Michael King, you're looking at the bad ownership right now. I just noticed that.
I mean, obviously ownership is going to change throughout the course of the day.
A lot's going to change.
Initial stuff at 11 in the morning.
RG stuff is really aggressive on him right now at 27%. You're saying it could come in lower than 13%. I think it could be. I think RG is really high. I think that's very aggressive, 27%. But we could see 15, 18% for a pitcher in Coors. That's expensive. Ownership is a cost, and that's expensive.
Does that make you want to play Colorado bats?
It makes me definitely want to play Nolan Jones and Ryan McMahon, at least for a mini stack. Especially if we're going to talk about 15, 18% ownership. Dane Dunning, Seattle has a lot of power. They've been bad this year too, but they've got a lot of power in that lineup when they make contact. Dunning isn't a high strikeout pitcher, but if you're telling me it's going to be 5% over on with the bat, what's he at on the RG projections right now? 7%. If you're talking single digit ownership, I'll take that for single digit ownership. It's a little less strikeouts. Maybe I get him 5 innings out of him and call it a day. It's 6.6.
I mean, if you want to spend up, I mean, wouldn't you consider? I mean, we talked about Fried, we talked about Webb. I mean, but any pitcher against the A's, is always in play. Marcus Stroman isn't sexy. He's overpriced. I mean, he's objectively overpriced at 9,800.
But against the A's, isn't he just Logan Webb?
Well, I think Logan Webb's a better pitcher.
Far better pitcher, but against the A's, isn't Marcus Stroman just Logan Webb? 7 innings, 5 strikeouts.
But also, I mean, you also have to realize they're playing this in New York. So, like these Oakland bats, I mean, it's not like they don't have power.
No, they've got some.
Right? So, I mean, Stroman is not really a strikeout pitcher. So the bats are going to make contact. Right. But I mean, I'd much rather take a shot on a Logan Gilbert against the Rangers, Grayson Rodriguez against the Angels. Like these are obviously bad matchups, but pitchers that when they're on, you could get 7-8 strikeouts out of them, but when they're not on, good luck to your to last place. I mean, in your last place lineups. But I mean, these are all expensive. These are all on the more expensive side. Your attitude, it seems like, is that you're much more willing to you're willing to eat. Like on a slate like this, we have 20 pitchers. You're willing to eat Pablo Lopez in your lineup, or eat, as ownership. Kevin Gao has been in your lineup. As long as you're like, oh, well, I'm going to play a 3% on Steven Matz at 7,300. I'm going to play a 4% on Eric Fetty at 7,500, a 7% Dan, because especially if you're playing not the largest field contests. I mean, just simply playing a 4% owned pitcher and not playing the chalkiest 5-man stack, it's like you're good. Like you don't really have to do much more than that.
No.
And I get the sense that if you decide to not even play two of the chalkiest pitchers on the slate, you essentially could just kind of do whatever you want. Like what pitchers would you be looking at on this slate in your small field sub 1,000 entry type contest?
So DK is running big single entries right now, which is what I play. I usually play I play the battery, I play the batter's eye, but they're playing larger single entry tournaments tonight. There are a little more than 1,000. I'm still looking at Lopez. I'm looking at Webb. I'm looking at Fried. Stroman, I'd rather just save the 200, go to Grayson Rodriguez for more strikeouts. So I think I'm just off on Stroman. Gausman, if the ownership is going to be over 25%, I'm more interested in KC Bats and Gausman. Canning, I'm kind of scared of Baltimore, and Canning gives up a lot of power. It's a ballpark bump for Baltimore. I don't think I'm on there. Michael King, I'll track the ownership. I just have to track the ownership on that throughout the day because it's a fantastic spot for him. As congratulations to Mr. and Mrs. Michael King. They're going to watch their little boy strike out 9 people tonight, but I might not have any of it. Eric Fetty, he can't get a lefty. He just can't get a lefty out, and it's a struggle against the Twins' power. I'm interested in Eric Fetty. The price tag feels like $800 too much for Eric Fetty. $7,500 because isn't Luis Severino on the slate too? He's at 7,800 against the Giants. If I'm going to, I will take the ballpark increase and low ownership on Luis Severino before I go to Eric Fetty. I mean, we're putting Severino in the 5% range. If he's 5 to 8%, if he goes up to 8% or even 9%, does it really matter? No. So I mean, he's not going to move that much.
The bat has him low, by the way. The bat doesn't project Luis Severino very well on this slate.
Well, the projections also factor in an ouchie Luis Severino, who is pitching hurt. When you're going back to last year's numbers, that was a guy who was pitching hurt. So right now, I mean, we can look at the side by side. I don't think he is pitching. I mean, he seems to be pitching fine. So I mean, we can look at his swing strike rate is still low. His whiff rate is still low. His walks are actually a little bit up. But he's not getting clobbered. He's getting the ball in the ground.
Alex, the RG projections aren't that much different. It's a 1-point difference. Oh, no. I mean, the RG projections have him 1 point higher, 91 pitch count. But I mean, on the scope of this slate, I mean, he's from a point per dollar perspective, he's in the bottom quarter of pitcher. I mean, he's going to be 2% owned. He's going to be. I mean,
well, is he a ground ball pitcher or is he a fly ball pitcher like he was in New York and with the Yankees? Because right now he's sitting around a 60% ground ball rate, and that's something that might be sustainable for him. His ISO's been cut in half because of it. So it's not a strikeouts and walks thing with him that's really changed. I think it's the type of contact he's getting that might just be the new Luis Severino. And again, we're not talking about 8,800. We're talking about 7,800 and taking a stab at a low owned guy. If he were 12, 15, 18%, if we're talking Michael King ownership, no, we're not even going to talk about Luis Severino for 30 seconds as we just did. But in that ballpark, I'll take a lot. I mean, I'll take Stevie Young if he wants to go back out there and pitch in San Francisco.
Let's talk about bats. Obviously, the highest team total on the slate is the Padres. And for facing Ryan Feltner, I feel like a 5.8 implied team total is actually quite low for Colorado. I mean, it feels like
It's
this
low for
Colorado
Colorado,
total
but
is low.
it's low for Colorado, but I wonder if we talk about guys being a new guy like Luis Severino. Is Ryan Feltner a new guy? I've unfortunately stacked against him and not done very well with it. So I happen to have watched him. I don't really watch that much baseball, but I've watched a lot of Ryan Feltner, and his velocity is pretty real, and his command is pretty real. He was doing it in course field. I think he struck out 10 bums, and who did he face? He struck out. He struck out 10 Rays. His last time pitching in course, he struck out 8 Phillies.
I remember that time because
You
I
know,
obviously had his under strikeouts and lost.
I
in
think
like
his under
3
was like 4.5, and I lost. It was a high number, which I thought was a very high number. And yeah, I lost a couple contests on Prize Picks because of it. So he has the strikeout stuff. Padres don't strike out a lot, and against the Blue Jays, who don't strike out a lot, he only had 4 Ks. Against Arizona, who doesn't strike out a lot, he only had 4 Ks. So the stuff could be real. Is San Diego going to put a lot of wood on the ball? And if they're going to put a lot of wood on the ball in Coors Field, obviously that should be like a 6.5, 6.8 type of total. But if
Yeah,
they're
but
not,
I'm more
it's
inclined to go
reasonable
by
to
the
keep it
betting
back.
markets than by anything else.
I
So I mean, if the market is this, I mean the total in core, the total in cores is 10.5. So
That's
like
low.
that's low. I mean, the highest
Yeah,
total on the slate is as Michael Townsend points out in the chat, the Cubs and the Astros. And we take a look at the bat stacks page, which if you're a bat subscriber, you just get an overview of just to get essentially, it averages out all the stacks and everything, and or 5-man, 3-man, 4-man, different sites. This is the DraftKings overview. You select the slate, sort by point per dollar, and and you could see like here's the median points, here's the points per dollar, here's the ceiling. Like we take a look at the Padres, and the Padres are in the middle range. Yeah, the 41. They have the highest median. But like right behind them, much better point per dollar is the Astros. And then we also have like the Cubs here, only 2 points below, better point per dollar. And then we also have the Mariners against Dane Dunning and the Orioles against Griffin Canning. I get the sense, ownership wise, that I think it's going to be the top 3 owned teams are going to be the Padres, the Astros, and the Cubs.
the Cubs, yes.
I
It's okay, because the wind's going to be blown out 10, 15 miles an hour in Wrigley.
Right. And then you got the Coors
And
game.
it's not good pitchers, and we're not talking about good pitchers here. We're talking
Right.
Jordan Wicks and JP France pass.
Right, but I don't mind attacking Dunning. Like the thing about Dunning and Canning is that Dunning, like I love these situations, Alex, in what I look for. The high variance situations, because people don't embrace variance enough.
Especially
in
entry.
MLB DFS.
Yeah.
Variance because people think from a mathematical standpoint, right? People don't think from a mathematical. The point that I'm trying to make is they don't think from a mathematical standpoint. They'll come and watch these shows, right? They'll see me and you here talk about who we're going to play, what does it look like for the slate, some strategy, game theory, leverage, correlation, all that stuff. And it's like we're not here to make predictions. Like we're not like oh, I'm going to play Max Fried because I think he's going to do well. It's like, no, Max Fried has a range of outcomes. It is a higher range of outcomes than other pitchers, but he has outcomes where he sucks and he has outcomes where he does great. Compared to the ownership, we think that maybe he's not as owned as his good outcomes, and that's what creates plus EV situations. I don't know if that's going to be tonight. All we know is that we consistently make decisions where we are playing lineups, we are playing players, and we are playing lineups. We are making bets. We are putting together pick'em cards that have a higher result than what the higher payout than what the actual probability is. Over the long run, we continue to make those decisions, we will profit. So in these scenarios where the Seattle and Baltimore project well, but Canning for their price, Canning and Dunning project well for their price also. We see in the bad projections, Canning at 6,800 and Dunning at 6,600. If you're going to play a cheap pitcher, those are the two cheap pitchers that you'd be choosing. If you're going to, I'm going to play Pablo Lopez and then play one of these two guys, realizing that yes, their medians are nice for their price, but their range of outcomes is extremely wide. So there's no reason for me to say, hey, tonight, if I'm playing the 222 or whatever, the 44, whatever, because they have the special leaderboard contest tonight, it's quite possible I may play Pablo Lopez or pitcher, one of the better pitchers, Logan Webb, and then play Dane Dunning, and then play the Orioles stack. Or I may, based on, how the lineups shake out, how ownership kind of moves around, maybe I play Griffin Canning and then I play the Seattle Mariners. And then you'd look and you come to me and you go, well, why are you playing Dunning if you think the Mariners are doing well? It's like, I don't think the Mariners are doing well. All I know is that based on the range of outcomes, these medians are high on both sides, which means typically the field tends to teeter towards being sure about one thing more than the other. So this may be the type of day where people are struggling with the cheap pitcher and they just decide that Dane Dunning's the guy. He ends up being in single entry, maybe 14% owned. And Griffin Canning, no one wants to attack the Orioles, and he ends up being 2% owned. And
we still have Michael King gobbling up ownership.
Right.
Michael King's going to gobble up some ownership too, which brings me to, I see the Twins sticking out like a sore thumb against my White Sox. They're super cheap. I wouldn't tell you you're stupid if you want to double up on like Lopez and Grayson Rodriguez. No one's going to have that build. No one's going to have that. No one's going to spend the $19K on pitching. Where's Grayson Rodriguez projecting right now? Like I said, I'm just looking at this for the first time.
Not very well from a media perspective.
I'm surprised.
He's okay.
Yeah, not very well, but it's a high strikeout situation, and no one's going to have that build. Twins and some cheapies, no one's going to have that build. So you can have, when you're talking lineups versus players, there are certain combinations that will make your lineup unique, where you can embrace the ownership of a Pablo Lopez and have a lineup combination that no one else is going to have with some high upside.
I'm not a big fan of the Twins personally. I mean, their lineup, I always hesitate playing their lefties. Like some of these teams, even the Padres today. I think we take a look. Obviously, Machado's out on the paternity list.
Mm-hmm.
This Padres lineup, the bottom of this lineup is hashtag not good. And they're all platoon players. Like this, look, Feltner will pitch, if Feltner doesn't pitch all that well, he may pitch 4 innings, and next thing you know, Rosario is in for one of these guys. And obviously Bogarts, Tatis, Cronenworth, Profar, Kim, I think the top 5 you're safe with, but of course those are the more expensive people. But if you're going to get value down here, I'm not sure if some of these lefties end up even getting 3 at bats. So the ownership that, Graham Pauley at 3,200, people may look at it and go, "Oh, okay, 3,200. That's pretty good for against Ryan Feltner and Coors." Fifth inning, you may not see him. I mean, like,
Yeah.
because I think Rosario comes in for one of these guys, right? The
Mhm.
righty, and these and someone. I mean, Rosario could play all these positions. So I mean, like, other than catcher, obviously, but. So I mean, sometimes you have to look at some of these things where like a team projects well, and it's like, well, the only reason it projects well overall is that because there are two cheap guys in the lineup that you're playing in order to fit in everyone. And next thing you know, Tatis does well, right? Bogarts does well, and then you get like two zeros in your lineup, even though the Padres scored 12 runs.
Looking at this Twins lineup, God, wait, am I looking at FanDuel? I'm looking at FanDuel. I was about to say this is ridiculously cheap.
No, the Twins
Kirilloff
I mean,
39.
4,400 to the Twins. The Twins
Julian
are
37. Yeah, Larnach 28. Kepler 39. Willie Castro 29. Carlos Santana 31. We can skip over Byron Buxton, and it's something. It's something that allows, or even if you're doing the Webb and Fried thing that we're talking about, yeah, that might be a contrarian build too. Set 16,000 on pitching. And I'm thinking about the whole lineup being a combination that is going to be unique, and I think you're right in terms of people spending maybe around 15,000 on pitching. So if we go a little bit higher than that,
I think the edge here is like what you mentioned before. It's like you know me, Alex, king of the vomit stacks, right?
I know you.
My brand is the vomit stack. I'm telling you, the brand is dead. Don't think that way anymore. Vomit stacks, for the exact reasons we talked about before. The reason you played vomit stacks not because you wanted to play a cheap team that's low owned for bats. You do it because you want to play Shane Bieber and Spencer Strider in the same lineup together, and the only way you could do that is finding a team
stacking against Max Scherzer,
right?
Yeah, there's no Max Scherzer as the third best pitcher on the board.
That doesn't exist anymore. There's not like
it doesn't exist.
Oh, I want to play Lopez and Stroman on this slate, and then play someone like is Lopez and Stroman like these pitchers aren't like is it worth paying even 18,000 for pitching when it's so variant between on a 10-game slate that like, dude, let other people go. I'm scared. Let me play Lopez Webb. And I'm just going to go, you know what? I'm going to play Dunning and Canning and then just full stack the Braves because, hey, they're the Braves. They could always score 12 runs. It's almost like I'd rather take shots at cheap pitching than force in 3K batters that may get platooned out in the 8th and 9th position of lineups with decent team totals because the ownership is going to follow those guys. And like batting in general is so much higher variance. I'd much rather just I'll take the expensive guy that's also going to be 3% owned because who's paying up for Julio Rodriguez today?
Well, also my dummy build, which never ends up being anything, but the first thing I did was I saw Dunning and Feltner and plugged them in to see if I could
so you're with Andrew Martinez. He wants to take shots on Feltner. I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
I'm not going to do it in single entry, but I think in MME, I think you got to have, what's his ownership at? Let's see, he's had some strikeouts. People have noticed. Is it nothing?
I mean, I can't see it being anything more than.
I can't even. Oh, okay. Oh, it's literally nothing right now.
1%. The bet has him at 1.68%. Like, yeah, I mean, dude, he's like the third lowest raw projected pitcher on the entire slate.
But that could turn into. I was thinking that would turn into King and Dunning eventually, but I didn't think King would come in at such high ownership.
Yeah, but why?
So I wanted to build. But initially, I wanted to build.
Why would you play Feltner at 6,400 when you have so many other people?
I'm not going to.
At a cheap
I said
eventually,
price. I assumed that would turn into Dunning and a King, or Dunning and who else was I looking at that caught my eye in the 6K? It was Canning. It was Canning, and that it was going to turn into one of those two. I just didn't know who. I was just plugging in to see what it would take to make a Cubs Astros build when I saw the wind was blowing out. I just saw Chicago weather on the local news and was like, oh, let's see what I can do here. And it makes everything very easy to do. That's where I think everyone is going to spend maybe less than 15K on pitching because Cubs and Astros is just so easy to build.
Now people get scared about pitching. They'll go, I'm going to posit there are going to be more Lopez Webb lineups than there will
really
lineups that are like Dunning Canning. People don't like, dude. People don't
mind. We're going to see a lot of Lopez
shots
King
on stats. They don't like taking shots on pitch.
We're going to see more Lopez Canning than we're going to see Lopez Webb. We agree on that, though.
No,
right?
no. There'll be more Lopez Webb.
Really? You think it's going to be more Lopez Webb? Okay.
Yes.
I think it's going to be it's an interesting combo to see.
Number one will be Lopez Webb. Number two would be one of those two plus a cheaper pitcher, and then the two cheap. But obviously it'll be more leaning toward. I mean, I don't blame them. Lopez at 9,300 at home against the White Sox.
Chris Paddock just struck out 9 last night.
Right. I mean,
the White Sox numbers don't look high in terms of strikeouts, but Chris Paddock just struck out 9. That guy, when he was good, couldn't strike out 9.
It's hard for me to. I'm serious. I don't care that the bat has its ownership at 50%.
Yeah.
Playing at sub 1,000 person field contests, it's hard for me to not, especially if I'm not going to play. If I don't play the Astros Cubs game and don't play the Padres, like what's the reason for not playing Lopez? Like that, like if I'm going to play none of the chalkiest bats, like why not play? I mean, Lopez projects 4 points higher than any other pitcher, and I'm not saying that he's a lock or anything. I'm not even saying he may not even be one of the top 5 scoring pitchers on the entire slate. But it is ownership. I mean, if he puts up 20 points, I mean, how is this hurting me? Unless I want to play, unless
you want to play the Cubs, Astros, Padres, though, you can't do that.
Right. Like
you're allowed to do it. You're allowed to try to do it. You're gonna eat all the ownership, and ownership is a cost. You're gonna spend so much on ownership, and then you're gonna have 4 spots left over in your lineup, and then you're gonna force yourself to over leverage against.
Right, I'm going to end up playing
bad
3
situations
guys that are 1% owned from that I shouldn't be playing.
The number 7 hitter on the Mets or something like that against Logan Webb. You're going to get that shit come up in your optimizer.
Right.
So I think that's kind of where we're coming together here. That Lopez is a fantastic play. I'm not going to say Pablo Lopez isn't a fantastic play. But where I want to play the Cubs, where I want to full stack, when I say play, full stack the Cubs, where I want to full stack the Astros, where I want to full stack the Padres, I have to consider not playing Pablo Lopez because that's a very costly ownership proposition.
Right. I mean, our sims right now at 9:10 in the morning, obviously, this is the initial stuff. I mean, Sim Labs will be updated 2 or 3 times later today. Our sims here and RG have Pablo Lopez as the most over-owned pitcher on the slate. Max Fried number 2, and that's in relation to their optimal rates. That doesn't mean they're not worthwhile in a lineup. And Michael King as one of the most under-owned pitchers, and Grayson Rodriguez. But I'm going to run 150 just to get a sense of what's kind of showing up in the sims from both a pitching standpoint and a hitting standpoint. And you could obviously use this tool, rotogrinders.com/simlabs, if you're a premium member here at RotoGrinders. I mean, I now build my initial set of lineups through SimLabs, and then bring them, and you could bring them directly. You have this sync lineups to lineup HQ. You could bring them over. Like, you could save whichever ones you want.
I love doing that. I save
them all.
I was saying, because then I can just see what the bat says about these lineups.
Right. But I can make 150 lineups here multiple times and save them and then sync them to lineup HQ and then have like 600, 750 lineups, 900 lineups, and then sort everything out from there. So I could save whichever ones I want. So I could look here. I could go, let's go to the exposures just to get a sense of what SimLabs is spitting out. So we just go by starting pitcher. Yeah, a lot of King, a lot of Gausman, Lopez, Rodriguez. Not as much on Dunning, Canning, right? This is why, Alex. This is why I said that you're going to get a lot more. I mean, take a look. Take a look at this.
Yeah.
Lopez, Rodriguez, Gauss. Like King is 7K. So like no pitcher under 7K is even in the Sims here. And then we take a look at the teams, and the Astros overwhelmingly are the top team in the Sims. Overwhelmingly. And San Diego is not even on the list.
Not on the list?
Not even on the list.
It's interesting.
Of the top of 150 of 150. I mean,
so I got in the weeds. I got in the weeds about Gausman's walks. That goes to a larger point, though. My point with Gausman isn't that he's walking a lot of people and I'm playing baseball scout here. My point is that at 30% ownership, to go overweight on Kevin Gausman is a very expensive cost in your portfolio of lineups. That you can play Kevin Gausman. The Sims are saying play Kevin Gausman, but you have to play him in half of your lineups. That's a lot for me.
Yeah, a lot of Astros. Then get Diamondbacks, Cardinals, and I mean everything else is kind of just spread out from there. This is obviously as of now. I mean, just Astros. I mean, I get why. I mean, the Astros, the Padres, the Cubs. Though that's the chalk bats today. Lopez. That's the chalk pitcher. I mean, the only pitcher that I could say is going to be that I could be sure of is going to be chalk. I mean, Gausman will be owned and King will be owned, but I guarantee you that Pablo Lopez against the White Sox, like no one's going to be like people are going to sound like me.
222.
Right.
In our
in the 222, Lopez is going to be like
50%
owned. Easy.
58. Yeah, it's going to be near 60%.
Right. Alex, you have a Prize Picks article coming out today?
Yeah, I wanted to get it out before, but life got in the way early this morning. So I was just saying I probably have to go back and scrap the whole thing because if they change some lines or threw in some demon boosts. They've been throwing out the demon boost a little bit later in the morning these days. I think they're waiting to see on action what action is doing before they put the demons out there. So I'm going to see if there's some good demons out there. I try to put like 3 hitting demon boosts in every article just to, sprinkle around in your contests. I think it's fun. It's more fun to bet on Aaron Judge getting over 2 total bases for the boost than the 1.5, right? I mean, isn't that just better math? Math is fun, and that makes the math a lot more fun. Michael Wacha is still sitting at 17.5 pitching outs against the Blue Jays. Our Pick'em tool has that still, I think, is the highest win rate on the slate, taking the less than Michael Wacha 17.5 pitching outs. I think Griffin Canning was up there for less than strikeouts, high on our list. So if you haven't seen have you talked about the Pick'em tool on your show? I haven't been watching your show because I've been busy writing. Yeah, the Pick'em tool is
right. No, I always show the props and Pick'em package here. I mean, I use bat projections. I use RG projections. I mean, for hockey stuff, I mean, if I'm putting together a hockey card on Prize Picks, I just go to the Pick'em tool and whatever the NHL, the top 5, I go, okay, give me a flex century and I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. Easy.
It works. It works when you work.
But I also want to highlight a time thing. And I mean, it's something that I stress all the time. Like, for instance, today, Alex, I slept in. Okay? I was away in St. Louis for 4 days, right? I woke up at around like 5:30 in the morning. Like, couldn't get to sleep, was up for like an hour and a half, and decided to just go back to sleep. Most of the time, if I'm once it gets to about 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, like I'm up because I got to put in all my prop bets and stuff like that. I decided I'm kind of taking the day off. I'll get some stuff in after this show, but it'll be mostly hitting props, probably not strikeout props. But like the time when I always say the early. Early, you got to get
Yeah.
early. So, for instance, Tommy Henry on DraftKings, under 4.5 strikeouts is minus 145. Okay?
Did Merrill Kelly go on the IL? I thought he was supposed to start against St. Louis today.
I have no idea.
Oh, okay. I'll look that up. I thought he was supposed to start against St. Louis today.
No, Henry is the projected starter. I mean,
Okay.
all his props are
Okay.
up, so
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at.
But I just
yeah, I'm
want to
looking at.
highlight
Anyway.
that Henry's under is at minus 145 currently. Minus 145 is an implied probability of 59.2%. Okay, because remember, you should always be looking at money lines and converting them to probabilities. Like these everything should be converted to probabilities.
It's the only way to do it.
Right. It's the only right, exactly. Looking at the line history on DraftKings, the line opened at 5:15 in the morning. Under 4.5 was plus 115. Plus 115 is 46.5% implied probability. It's now at 59.2% implied probability. That's a 13%
jump.
Right, between open and current. That's where that is the edge.
That's the money.
That's the money. So if you were up at 5:15 in the morning and got Tommy Henry under 4.5 at plus 115, you're getting so much value. It's absurd amounts of value. Now, you're going to say to me, yeah, but I don't want to be up at 5:15 in the morning, right? Like, I don't like this line came out of some of these lines come out overnight. They come out at 11:30 last night or whatever. But this line on DraftKings came out at 5:15 in the morning. Alex, at 8:34 in the morning, that line moved on DraftKings under 4.5 to plus 105. So it's still like 8:30, but like here are the moves. At 8:34 plus 105. This is on the under 4.5. 9:33 minus 105. 10 o'clock minus 115. 10:31 minus 125. 10:31 at 10 seconds later, it went up to minus 135, and at 11:25, it's at minus 145. So that chunk that I'm looking at right there between 8:30 and 11:30, that's the move. That's typically like the move. That's like moving time, right? Because that's when more people are I
was gonna say I usually try to post my stuff before 9:30 a.m. I would love to do it at 5:30 a.m., but I work late at nights, and then I got kids bothering me in the morning. But otherwise, I would post it at 6 a.m. Yeah, I mean that's where all the money is.
Right. All the money is during that period. It's getting in before that period. So I'm looking at this. I still have the under 4.5 minus 145 as a plus EV wager, even at that price. But the longer and longer that price stays up, the less and less value that is, because just simply due to adverse selection. There's a much bigger difference than if I got that at look. If I got it at 9:30 at minus 105, it's not plus 115 from 5:30 in the morning, but it's surely better than minus 145 now. Like, I would have been happy to get that at minus 105. So it's not a matter of, oh, you got to be up at 5:15 in the morning. Like, it's not like these openers, they come and then an hour later they just jump to whatever they're going to be. It's like it's going to be a progression, but the moving period in baseball, if for pitching props, typically is like somewhere between 7 and 11-ish in the morning as people get up and more people are putting eyeballs onto it. There are less eyeballs at 11:30 at night overnight. There's less eyeballs, so there's less reason for books to even move numbers because there's less action coming in. Once we get people waking up going, this line is way too off for Tommy Henry, people are going to start pounding this at 8. I'm one of those people. That's the whole point. That's why I said if I'm not going to be up when I woke up at 5:30 and then like I'm falling asleep at like 7 going, should I wake myself up and be good for the day and start getting my stuff in? Like, I had to make a decision then. And then once I decided to go back to sleep until 10, I'm like, okay, I guess I'm pretty much not doing pitching props today, because by the time I'm looking at it, like, all the value has been sucked out, that the likelihood of the number being good goes exponentially down. Because let's say I take Tommy Henry at under 4.5 at minus 145, even though the bat still projects that as a plus EV bet. If that same number, minus 145, is up 5 hours from now, the likelihood of that really even being a plus EV bet, no matter what the bat says, is probably minimal, because it's been up for that long. It's the same thing with overnights. Like, so many times, Alex, on Prize Picks, you take something, you take something when the board opens up at like midnight, 1 a.m. or something. If you wake up in the morning,
they're not posting much at midnight anymore. Have
I
you noticed they're not
know.
posting much at midnight anymore? It's
No, because
really
they're waiting
annoying.
for the books. They're waiting for the
Of course, I know
they're waiting for the books.
I don't want them to wait for the books. I want them to just do their stupid shit and
Right.
post ridiculous stuff.
Yeah, but just like in the past when they used to put up stuff that was overnight, if you took the numbers overnight and you woke up in the morning and they didn't move, that doesn't mean you should take more of it. That means that you should be done with it.
That was my entire profit in 2023.
Then that means you're good, right?
Yeah. My entire profit in 2023, I had a rough baseball season, lost some money. It was pretty much all Prize Picks, because they would post stuff at 10:30, 11 o'clock my time. I'd pounce on it then, and I was just done. Post 20 tickets and,
right,
go about my day. The next day, and I would watch these tick, 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 tick. The meter's running on all of these propositions. The meter's running all morning, all afternoon. You can't wait on them. But I wonder how much. I think you and I have a better understanding of EV in general because of our poker background, that we understand our Sklansky bucks. That it's not, and what you're going at, it isn't the 4.5 that is jumping out at us. It's the payout that we can get on that under 4.5 versus the probability of it occurring.
Right, there's a big
difference. I think our poker background makes it.
Minus 145 and plus 115 is like, dude.
Minus 145 is money. You've won. No matter what happens tomorrow, you've won.
Right.
You've made money. And I think the average person doesn't understand that making the plus EV move is a winning move. They just look at, I don't know. I think the average person's looking at this shit at like 2-3 p.m. maybe against some projections, and they're getting bad juice.
What ends up this is what ends up happening that people don't realize. I mean, obviously the smart people that watch this show should. That for instance, I'm getting an under 4.5 or plus 100, and someone else at 4 o'clock in the afternoon is getting the same thing at minus 150. It's like, we both put $100 down on this. Like, I'm winning 100. You're winning 50. Like, we're both winning the bet. Hey, Tommy Henry goes out, throws 3 strikeouts, comes out of the game. The person betting minus 150 is like, I won that bet. Ain't I great? Right? It's like, yeah, but I won twice as much as you. On the same literally the same bet. It's the same. It's like going to the store and you get in line. I mean, obviously I use the U-scan, so I don't use the checkout lanes. But imagine you get your groceries, you get your 10 items, and you go and you see the person in front of you has the same exact 10 items, right? And it's like, okay, you both got your groceries, right? So I'm in front of you, and it rings it up. It's like, oh, here's your groceries, $47.63. And you take your receipt, whatever, and then you get to the grocery shop, and it's like, oh, it's $117 for you. Like, it's the same thing. Like, why are you paying? What, like, dude, why are you paying like twice as much for everything that I am? Like, well, as I'm getting my corn pops, I'm getting my hot dogs. What does it matter? I'm happy. I got my lunch. It's like, yeah, but if you continue to go to the groceries every week and pay double for this, like at the end of the year, it's like, You're gonna wonder where $5,000 went. Like just like, well, you ate the same things that I ate, and you're $5,000 less. I mean, like
Yeah,
that's really what it comes down to. People
it does.
people think very short term about what's the
Mhm.
difference between minus 110 and minus 120. It's like, well, are you betting every day? Are you betting
Yeah,
like, especially me? Are you betting 50, 100, 150 bets? I mean, 1% difference on some of this stuff is at the end of the year, like
thousands of
that's
dollars.
that's like a mortgage payment. I mean, like
Yeah,
just simply simply not taking the best
yeah,
price when you can take the best price.
yeah. And it's funny. You do self checkout. I hate self checkout. I can't stand self checkout because I'm paying. Then you know what? Look, if I'm gonna ring up my own groceries, give me a discount because I'm partially paying the markup for labor, and part of that labor is someone bringing up my groceries and bagging it up for me. Like I don't know. Why am I gonna check myself out?
Well,
Give me a
that's
little.
why
Just give me two and a
I
half
only buy
percent
items
off.
that are on sale, Alex. I do my part by only buying the items on sale,
Okay,
assuming that the labor costs were taken out.
that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense then. Yes. Like you can go, okay, so I go to Aldi and I have to like bag my stuff up, right? If I want to go to Aldi, you have to bag your stuff up. But I'm also paying like 10% cheaper for everything, so that's fine. If I go to Mariano's, which is like a higher end Kroger here in Chicago, um, they have someone who bags your groceries for you and it's like normal prices. I'm fine with that. If I go to Jewel Osco, which is like our Albertsons, you have to bag your own stuff sometimes. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm paying the same prices I paid at Mariano's and I have to bag my own stuff. This doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm I don't like bagging my own groceries. I don't like ringing out my own groceries. I'm paying the cost of labor.
You know what I'm paying for? I'm paying for something that's way more valuable than labor to me.
Food.
No, I'm paying to not have to interact with other human beings.
You have to chit chat with them.
I don't want to. I don't want anything to do with other human beings.
That
I want to
makes
go
sense.
out
I
and
can
people
see
will
that
leave me the
happening.
fuck alone, right?
I was gonna pretend I was
I don't want to
shocked
have
by
to
that, but
give
that
the
doesn't shock
card,
me
do
at
this
all.
thing, say hello, do anything. No, give me the self checkout. I'll take it. I know how to do this. Ding, 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 ding. Bag, 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 bag. I'm gone. Let's go. Move.
Yeah.
But I'm a horrible person, so that's why. I don't
That's
like.
all right. You're fine. Have you ever had the self checkout worker start to interact with you? I've had that happen a couple times. They want to
No,
interact with my
cord.
kids
Well,
a lot of
because
the
the thing
time.
messes up. It doesn't weigh the thing properly. It says we have to wait for the assistance, or I'm getting cold medicine,
Oh,
and they think that
or if you're
I'm
getting,
making a meth
oh yeah,
lab or
I think you're a
something.
meth head. Yeah.
Right.
Or if you try to buy booze, you got to wait for the person to come over and um,
ID check you.
yeah. Not my
Okay,
thing.
so
We
we
can
got
talk self
Grinders
checkout off
Live.
here.
Yeah, if you like self checkout, hit the thumbs up button on your way out the door. If you don't, maybe
If you
more
don't
people
like,
don't.
if you don't, hit the thummy thumbs.
Well,
Hit
no,
the thummy thumbs.
we're asking them to do labor. So, like, is that a should we have someone that helps them hit the thumbs up button?
It's a
But
free
they're
show.
doing it themselves, so that means they have to be for self checkout because they're doing it
This
themselves. They're hitting the thumbs up button themselves.
this show should be $50 a month, so they're getting it for free.
Okay,
That's
they're
how I
getting the
see
labor for nothing.
it.
Okay, but go do that. We got Grinders Live and Crunch Time later today. They'll break down once we obviously have lineups and everything, weather and umpire data, everything like that later in the day. So tune into that and join our Discord, rotogrinders.com/Discord. Most of the channels are free. They shouldn't be, but you could join that. Go join the MLB channel. I know Alex is in there, the Bat channel if you're a Bat subscriber. I always have that up, even though maybe I don't participate as much as normal, but I am in there. So come on by, and I'll be back tomorrow with Taylor Smith. Right, it's pretty much baseball. I mean, other than Fridays MMA and Mondays with McCool, it's gonna be mostly baseball for foreseeable future. Maybe some NBA playoffs, maybe some NHL stuff. You never know. But we'll be back tomorrow for some more baseball and everything else that you're thinking about in daily fantasy props and pick 'em on Roto Grinders today.